Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I am going to make a bold prediction for both the future of Magic the Gathering and the future of Dungeons and Dragons. I shall not make you wait. Here is my bold prediction for the future of Magic the Gathering and Dungeons and Dragons. I predict that within 2 years, by May 2021, the setting for Magic the Gathering and the setting for Dungeons and Dragons will be merged. They will be the same, okay? There are a lot of reasons. Now, that's a bold prediction, and I need to present evidence why I think this will happen. And I think if you're paying attention, there's some strong evidence. All right, so evidence number one, Ravnica Dungeons and Dragons book, right? Now, I will tell you, that thing fell flat as a pancake. Nobody on the Dungeons and Dragons side cared about that book. Nobody on the Magic the Gathering side really cared about that book. It really wasn't asked for by either group, and it really wasn't received. From what I could see, it was not received well by either group, okay? But here's the key. It was done. So right now, Guilds of Ravnica book was the first and most well-established setting ever printed for 5th edition. It treated the setting of Ravnica like no other setting was ever treated has ever been treated for 5th edition, right? It was the most robust, full source book for a setting book, and it looked like a setting book looked like in every other edition of the game, which had not occurred for 5th edition until Ravnica. Proof number one, right? Okay. Now, where do we go from there? The second, why, I'm going to establish now why this will happen. The reason this will happen is money, right? Wizards of the Coast is a very smart, Wizards of the Coast employs very intelligent game designers, and they employ very smart executives, right? And any smart executive can figure out, we have two in-house brands, Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering. They are both making parallel fantasy worlds, right? They're parallel. They run alongside each other. They have virtually the same content, right? Both have wizards, both have fighters, both have dragons, both have angels and demons, right? The only thing that's different is we're hiring two different groups of people to make them, and we're hiring we're just giving them slightly different names, right? It's two fantasy worlds running parallel, right? If we merge them, we can get synergy, right? So the reason this is going to happen is money. And I guarantee the word synergy, I truly believe the word synergy has already been attached to this concept, right? Now, why would Wizards of the Coast do this? There are very, very, very logical reasons for it. Proof number two, the Dungeons and Dragons board games, okay? The Dungeons and Dragons board games are brilliant, right? Every single adventure book that Dungeons and Dragons has done, with maybe a few exceptions, but the vast majority of them, like the Strahd book, and I think the Sword Coast book, a few others, right? They have basically Wizards of the Coast has created, like, a perfect example of this is the Curse of Strahd. So with the Curse of Strahd, Wizards of the Coast created that adventure book, right? And then they actually, it also happened with Storm King's Thunder, right? Pretty sure that's how it's said. All right, so basically with the Strahd book, and they've done this with a few other settings, they created the Dungeons and Dragons book, they did a whole bunch of art, they built all the characters, and they built the setting, right? And then someone at Wizards of the Coast said, oh my gosh, this is a no-brainer. We should do a board game for this. And the reason why is the setting's already written, the art is already done, right? All we need to do is just bring in a board game designer to put a wrapper on this sucker, right? Because half the work's already finished for this other project. So let's not leave money on the table. Let's leverage the art, leverage the setting design, and put it directly into the board games. And this has happened multiple times now. There was a board game for Storm King's Thunder. There was a board game for Strahd. There have been multiple board games, and almost all the art and setting and non-player characters and monsters and everything for those board games comes directly out of the Dungeons & Dragons product. That is synergy, right? Now, I know that's a lame corporate word, but that's real, right? That really works, right? It's genuine. It is a very good use of their time and energy, and it actually very much works, right? So proof number 1 is Ravnica. Proof number 2 are the Dungeons & Dragons board game settings, right? Now, where is some proof for this on the Magic the Gathering side? Well, proof for this on the Magic Gathering side exists with specifically the ending, the War of the Spark, right, setting. So the War of the Spark just happened. War of the Spark is a pre-release event. It's a set of cards that came out for Magic the Gathering. War of the Spark is the ending of the Nicol Bolas saga. Nicol Bolas is a powerful planeswalker. He's also a dragon. And basically, Wizards of the Coast said, this is the ending of this specific saga, right? And get this, War of the Spark did something very, very unique that has never, ever been done before. In War of the Spark, there was a planeswalker in every single pack you opened, right? Now, these planeswalkers, basically what they did, planeswalkers have been around for a long time in Magic the Gathering. They're these powerful characters, and they are, the card itself is equivalent to a player, right? The idea is that the planeswalker is sitting right next to the player playing with them, right? And it's a really interesting concept. Now, never before, every planeswalker before War of the Spark was not only rare, but I think they were like mythics. They were mythic rares. They were incredibly rare cards within the sphere of the Magic the Gathering setting. Okay, so with that, so basically with War of the Spark, there were uncommon planeswalkers, right? This had never been done before in the history of the game, right? And planeswalker, like, I'm not kidding. When we would go to pre-release, me and my sons and my daughters would go to pre-releases, everybody would be open packs. And, you know, one of my daughters would call out and say, I got a planeswalker, right? And it was really special, right? And like the people at the table would be like, oh, that's fantastic, man, that's really cool. And, you know, me and my son and my daughter and my, you know, whatever collection of my kids was at that pre-release, because they weren't at college or off somewhere, and they could attend and they didn't have too much homework, would celebrate. And we'd like, yeah, that's awesome, air high five, you know, like, and it was really exciting. We made a joke at War of the Spark because my son really hated this, but every time I would open up a Planeswalker, I would yell over to my son, hey, I got a Planeswalker, and then I would do it for the next pack, and the next pack, and I did it 6 times, and he was like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to be here, right? Like, it was you know, it was one of those kind of driving into the ground jokes, but like, basically, you know, if a Planeswalker is in every pack, it's not really that special anymore. This is a huge shift in Magic the Gathering. This means something is coming, right? By the way, planeswalkers are rare planeswalkers. I have coined a new term for the uncommon planeswalkers. I call them planes strollers, right? They just stroll from plane to plane. They're pretty lame compared to a real planewalker. And one of the things that makes them different is the plane strollers, they're uncommon and they have no plus ability. So basically, their loyalty counters just get taken off, and there's no way to add loyalty counters on the card itself, on the plane. And that is different. That has never been the case for any planeswalker before this. So basically, the introduction of a planeswalker in every single pack in a setting of Magic the Gathering is completely unprecedented, and it comes at the same time Magic the Gathering is saying, we are finishing the story of a major saga that has gone on for no less than 15 sets. That is a huge change. And it begs the question, what comes next? And I'm going to tell you what comes next. The merging of the Magic Gathering fantasy setting with the Dungeons & Dragons fantasy setting. It makes a ton of sense, right? Now, frankly, this is going to help Wizards of the Coast from a money perspective, right? They're going to get a bunch of artists to do artwork. They're going to get some setting designers to write some settings, and then those settings are going to go directly into Magic the Gathering, and they're going to go directly into Dungeons and Dragons. Okay, this is my prediction, and it makes a ton of sense. They've already done this on the board game front, right? And now I hear a lot of people saying, "Oh, no, the lore for Magic Gathering is unique, right? And it's not the same as Dungeons and Dragons." That is correct. It is unique, but it's also bad, right? Like, no one reads the story for Magic the Gathering for the setting and for the lore. And the reason why is the lore for Magic Gathering has always been subordinate to the needs of the set's mechanics, right? Those are mechanically driven. So literally, the lore of Magic the Gathering has been driven by the needs of the rules mechanics of the game. And that is a terrible, terrible, terrible foundation to build a story on, right? And I will say without a doubt, in my opinion, the MTG lore is absolutely milquetoast. And I have read quite a few. I've read about a half a dozen of the books. I pay attention to the lore, and I played the game from the beginning in 1993. I was there in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, when they opened up the first box of Magic the Gathering, and everybody got out of their seats from the D&D game we were playing and walked over, and when we saw the store opener just kind of reading this pamphlet and looking through these packs, and we were like, what's that, right? And so I saw it at the beginning, right? And so I also know that Dungeons and Dragons and Magic Gathering have been a hair's breadth away from each other from the very beginning, right? Now, what will that setting be, right? I hear a lot of people thinking, oh, well, it's going to be Faerun, right? So Faerun will come to Magic the Gathering. Nope. It's going to be a new it's going to be a new world, right? And the reason they're not going to use Faerun is I think they want to disconnect it from the original owners. They've found problems with Mordenkainen, and Ed Greenwood. He really built that thing from scratch, and it's a pretty cool world, but it's really, really, really reminiscent of Tolkien. And the reality is, I think for intellectual property rights, I think what they'll do is they'll stand up a new Faerun. It's going to be Faerun in everything but name, right? And you know what? That's completely fine. It's completely fine to do that, because in many ways, in my opinion, all Faerun really was Middle Earth with the names filed off, right? So why not do that again, right? So my prediction is that within 2 years, by May 2021, the setting of Magic the Gathering and the setting of Dungeons & Dragons will be exactly the same. And the characters and the storylines and the lore for Magic the Gathering and Dungeons & Dragons will be merged. I also I think this is going to help both games. I think this is going to be a painful transition for both sets of players, but it's going to be like heating your vegetables. I think it is really going to be better for everybody. Here's why. Dungeons & Dragons, the art on Dungeons & Dragons does not hold a candle to the art that is done on Magic the Gathering. The art that is done on Magic the Gathering is the very best art in the world, bar none, when it comes to fantasy art, right? So Dungeons & Dragons is going to get a lot better art design, okay? Guess what? Magic the Gathering is finally going to have some cool lore and some great monsters and some things like that, right? And I also predict that the Planeswalker term will be abandoned, and the player in Magic the Gathering will be referred to as an Archmage, right? And that wizards will still be like monsters within Magic the Gathering. But and really, the overlap is already there, right? This is a really good idea, because there was no sense in having these parallel running fantasy worlds. So Dungeons & Dragons does lore better, far better than Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering does art far better than any art that's ever been done for Dungeons & Dragons. Let's get this peanut butter and this chocolate together, and we're going to have MTG D&D Reese's Peanut Butter Cups. That's my prediction. Do you think I'm wrong? Do you think I'm right? Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.